This story begins between Christmas and New Year's at the tail end of December 2023. A couple weeks ago, I had just played my final game in the first ever draft league that I would participate in under the Seattle Slashers banner, which was the John Jr. Draft League Season 2, and unfortunately, I had ended the season well outside of playoffs. After this disappointing inaugural season for me, I started to wonder, what would I do next? It had, again, already been a couple of weeks without me playing a draft game, and I felt dissatisfied. A 2-5 season where one of those wins was in a meme game wouldn't satisfy me. I wanted more. I wanted to draft again, and I wanted to win. However, the JJDL wouldn't start up again for a few months, and so I knew that I needed to turn elsewhere to find competition for myself. And as I was looking for a new league to join, a familiar face reached out to me. It was Mingo, one of the best and most inspiring people I had met throughout the JJDL, and so when he suggested that I join a draft league that he runs, I was more than happy to give it a go. And so, with the scene set, I hereby proudly present my most worked on video here on the channel. This is my first experience in a National Dex Draft League. Of course, the beginning of every draft league starts with a draft, and I got lucky once again with my placement as I got randomized into the second overall draft pick, and this was extremely important as there were a handful of completely broken Pokemon on the board, including beasts like Megalodios, Genesect, Naganadel, Zamazenta Crown, or Shaman Sky, and out of these absolute behemoths, I decided to pick up one particularly cold kitten, Chien-Pao. To support Chien-Pao, I drafted the non-mega version of Latios, as well as Heatran, which gave me a super strong core of 3. After that, I decided to add on Milotic and Iron Hands, 2 more bulky pieces, before picking up some Terra Captains. Firstly, I reached out for Comfey, a Pokemon that becomes a truly formidable threat once it can break steels and poisons, so I gave it Terra Fire and Terra Ground. Then I got Scolipede, another Pokemon that struggles a bit with steals, but has access to a lot of natural setup potential with its speed boost ability, and I gave it Terra Ground and Water. After getting my Terra Captids, I rounded out the team with some Pokemon that filled roles. Firstly, I got Claydol for removal and more bulk. Then, I got Mega Banette, a priority abuser and a good utility Pokemon. And then I finally got Avalugg, but unfortunately dropped it and ended up getting Smeargle and Alolan Vulpix instead. As soon as I picked up the team, I knew it was money. This team not only had a super crazy round 1 pick in Chien-Pao, but the entire team just looked amazing to me, as Iron Hands had been a Pokemon that I had wanted to try for a while. Heatran as well has a lot of versatile sets, making it sound fun for me to build with. And Banette is one of my favorite Pokemon, so being able to use its Mega form sounded like an absolute blast. However, the Seattle Slashers weren't the only team that looked super strong. Mingo, the guy who got me into the league, got this. Another good friend of mine, Shattered Backboards, got this. And Chef, another good friend of mine through the JJDL, got this. It's good, but it didn't quite seem as good as some of the other teams, no doubt. But anyways, with the draft concluded, it's time now to move on to the games.
Fight!
Our first matchup was against Prince, who had a rather strong team consisting of a ton of bulky guys mixed in with a snow core. I was particularly scared of Zamazenta Crown, since it just about counters Chien-Pao due to its physical bulk and great typing, as well as Celesteela because I have PTSD from fighting that guy in Generation 8 random battles. However, since there were no dark types on Prince's team, I led off the battle with Luster Purge Latios, which was able to do big damage to a lot of Prince's bulky pieces. After jockeying for positioning, I was able to claim the first 2 kills, including getting rid of that pesky Celesteela with my Shukaberry Heatran. However, Prince tied the battle soon thereafter, and I was forced into Iron Hands. After that though, Prince made an unfortunate call here by switching, allowing Iron Hands to set up a Swords Dance and claiming the remaining 4 kills, securing me a win to start off the season.
Fight!
Our second battle was against Muffin, the co-owner of the league alongside Mingo. Muffin had also won his week 1, taking down a very strong team in pretty convincing fashion, and so I knew this battle was going to be a tough one. Muffin's team consisted of Great Tusk, Latios, and one of the tankiest Pokemon of all time, Mega Aggron, as well as some other pieces which could put in work defensively. Unfortunately, I started out the battle on the back foot, leading my Heatran into his Great Tusk. However, knowing that Muffin was a great player, I decided to call him clicking a move to punish my switch out, and so I stayed in and set up Stealth Rocks, and sure enough, he clicked Knockoff. After that, knowing he was unlikely to click Knockoff again after removing Heatran's Pasho Berry already, I decided to go into my Levitate Latios, dodging an Earthquake. In the first 2 moves, I had completely swung the positioning of this lead matchup while also getting my rocks up. Eventually, Scolipede was able to get in and get a Swords Dance off, claiming 1 kill and damn near breaking the Mega Aggron too, which was awesome. After this, Muffin and I traded kills until, after an untimely freeze on my Latios, we got into an endgame with my Chien-Pao and Mega Banette against his Great Tusk and Florges. I burned the Great Tusk, thinking that this would seal the game. However, Muffin's excellently prepped Lumberry cured it, and Banette took a ton of damage from Knockoff in return. I knew I needed more damage on this Tusk in order for Pao to clean up, and so I sacrificed Banette by clicking Prankster Curse to kill myself, while also doing 25% of damage to the Tusk. From here, Pao was able to spam Ice Spinner and bring the game home, winning us a very close 1-0 nail-biter of a game.
Fight!
My next opponent was Arion, with an absolutely crazy terrain team. Sneasler and Iron Boulder all take advantage of the electric terrain provided by Tapu Koko, while a Poison Heal Gliscor, a Mega Charizard X, and a Terra Lokix all back them up. This is probably the craziest team I had gone up against yet, and I knew that if I could beat this, I'd have a really great shot of having an absolutely amazing season. The game started, and quickly Iron Hands was able to do some amazing damage to Gliscor and take out the Tapu Koko as it set up screens. Sneasler tried to set up in its face, thinking that the Reflect would be enough, but Iron Hands killed it raw with an Earthquake, a sight that dropped my jaw in real time. This was due to the fact that as the Tapu Koko came in, it set up that electric terrain, which actually boosted my Iron Hands' attack even further using Cork Drive. Soon thereafter, Claydol picked up a kill on the Iron Boulder, getting one in its debut game, and I was able to trade pieces with Arion until Comfy could clean up the game, earning the Seattle Slashers a 3rd win in a row on the season.
Fight!
Next in line for me was Iger, and Iger had an interesting team that consisted of 2 of the spookiest newly released Pokemon at the time, Raging Bolt and Terapagos, neither of which I had much knowledge about. On top of that, there were a couple of Intimidate Pokemon, a Tauros which threatened Chien-Pao, and a Crocodile that could threaten Iron Hands. However, I had some tricks up my sleeve, and I knew that I could win this matchup. As the battle started, we jockeyed for positioning as usual, and my substitute Stealth Rock's Toxic Heatran set started putting in a lot of work, badly poisoning the Tauros, which helps out for a Chien-Pao endgame. After a bit of a spook against a weakness policy Terapagos, I was able to position Chien-Pao in front of Screamtail and set up a Swords Dance as it protected. I was then able to clean up the rest of the game and get a lucky flinch on the Corviknight, with Chien-Pao getting all 6 kills, finally escaping the shadow of other Pokemon like Iron Hands and showing just how broken it could be. This put me up to 4-0 on the season.
Fight!
Hoping to continue my undefeated streak, my next opponent for Week 5 was Tom, who had a team featuring a ton of special offense, as Mega Alakazam, Chi-Yu, Goldengo, and Terra Jolteon can all pack a serious punch to anything that doesn't have a ton of Spadef, and Mega Alakazam and Jolteon in particular are super fast too. However, I have a really nice Spadef wall in Melodic, who hasn't particularly been in the spotlight yet, and it absolutely sat on this Chi-Yu. Additionally, I had priority on Mega Banette, allowing me to deal with the Alakazam. As a result, I was quickly able to convert my advantage into a win after sitting on more stuff with Melodic and even claiming a cheeky Mirror Coat kill with it before Banette cleaned up the final Galarian Zapdos. The Seattle Slashers had advanced to a 5-0 record.
Fight!
With a so far perfect record, I felt that there was a very high possibility that I could finish the regular season undefeated, which I was super stoked about. However, my next game would be a tough one, as I was facing off against Dewey, a player who picked up Shattered Backboard's old team and revamped it with some new threats. The team now consisted of Pokemon like Genesect, Iron Valiant, Ursaluna, Lycanroc Dusk, and Meowscarada as some of its biggest threats. However, as I loaded into the game, I realized on Team Preview that I had already won, as Comfy had a pretty free matchup into the 6 that my opponent brought. Although Lycanroc gave me a bit of trouble at the beginning, Heatran was able to get a Flame Body burn on it as it died, and Comfy proceeded to come in, click Terra Fire, and click Calm Mind, leading to it claiming 5 of the 6 kills I needed, earning myself a 2-0 victory at the end of the game. This put my team at a 6-0 record, so far still completely perfect.
Fight!
My 7th opponent was Josh, who had a team with arguably the strongest allowed Pokemon in the league, Mega Latios. On top of that, Darkrai and Zapdos would also be there to give me nightmares, while Glamora provided hazard support, and Terra Mienshao acted as a fast physical threat. To cap it all off, this team had one of the best Chien-Pao switch-ins yet, Primarina. The battle begins, and I realized that my Comfy could do a ton of work here. On top of that, Melodic looks pretty solid too, though it too would be walled by Primarina. I led off with Smeargle, which outsped the opposing Zapdos and put it to sleep before setting up hazards with Ceaseless Edge, and even burning the Registeel with Burning Bulwark. Iron Hands opened the game up for my side by curing Toxic with its Lumberry and killing the Registeel. However, this created an opportunity for Mega Latios to come in and Mega Evolve, forcing me into Melodic, which brought Zapdos in. It was here that I made another excellent prediction. I knew that this Zapdos had Defog, as I had revealed it earlier in the battle. Knowing that, although my Melodic was a water type and this Zapdos could easily Thunderbolt it for some huge damage, I predicted Josh to Defog, and so I stayed in. I got the play right, and by clicking Defog and causing an evasion drop on my Melodic, my competitive ability kicked in and I got a +2 special attack raise, meaning my next Ice Beam killed the Zapdos. A huge win for me in the long run. After that, Melodic continued to do super well by freezing and then killing off the Darkrai. However, as Primarina came in and was chipped down, it revealed 3 very important moves. Rest, to heal the Toxic I was putting on it, and to get it all the way back up to full HP. Sleep Talk, to do damage while it was asleep from rest, as well as Psychic Noise, a move that prevented me from recovering, forcing me to eventually switch out with Melodic. I first tried to get a special defense drop with Heatran's Earth Power, but ultimately to no avail, leaving my Heatran at red HP. Soon after, Iron Hands was able to take down the Runerigus, but Mega Latios forced it out again. Sacking Heatran, I went into Pow to pressure the Latios, but Primarina came in again, and this time I tried to break it with Comfy. However, Psychic Noise was super annoying as it shut down most of my Comfy's attacks, and as I was setting up Calm Minds, eventually the Primarina got a Sleep Talk roll and crit me into red HP. From there, I was unable to heal enough back, and eventually my Comfy fell, and I was out of options for dealing with Primarina. And though Iron Hands was eventually able to defeat it, I had no more Pokemon left, and so there was nowhere to hide from the incoming Luster Purge from the final Pokemon standing on our opponent's side of the battlefield, Mega Latios. After that game-changing crit on my Comfy, the Seattle Slashers were now 6 wins and 1 loss. Immediately after this battle, I was very frustrated. So frustrated, in fact, I slammed my fist into my laptop so hard I cracked it. I knew that I was playing to the best of my ability. I even made a hard read that earned me 2 kills with my Melodic. But in the end, it was a silly sea lion and a singular stroke of bad luck that would end my dream of having an undefeated season. I had made it through 6 long weeks of preparations and games, and I lost it right at the very end of week number 7, so very close to the 8-week finish line. But fortunately, I would still have one last game to pick myself up and get some momentum heading into playoffs.
Fight!
Sadly, my week 8 opponent gave me a forfeit win. One thing that I have neglected to say about the server until now was that interest in it was severely declining. Mingo had retired after about 3 or 4 weeks of this league, which sadly led to some of his other friends in the server becoming very demotivated to play in the league anymore as well, meaning that at this point, realistically there were only a few people still playing games consistently. My Week 8 opponent in particular was also already locked out of playoffs, and I was already locked into playoffs. And due to burnout reasons, they decided to hand me the win, which I can't blame them for. When you've been playing in a league with so many strong teams for 7 weeks already, it can be hard to not burn out and want a break from the stress. In fact, one of the main reasons driving me to continue forward was my record and my goals. Though I had failed to attain a perfect season, I had to set my eyes on the prize once again, and that prize was the Seattle Slashers winning their first draft league. Finishing at 7-1 meant that I had an incredibly strong record, and so I was sure to be a very high seed going into the playoffs. In fact, I had climbed so high that the Seattle Slashers were the second best team in the league, a feat that I'm still quite proud of today. But if I was seed number 2, which team was seed number 1? Well, dear viewer, I have a question to ask you. Do you remember at the beginning of the video how quickly both you and I wrote off this team? Sure, this team had some great Pokemon on it, like Garchomp, Tornadus Therian, Blacephalon, and Mega Scizor, but it lacked something on the broken side. It lacked Chiempao, it lacked Mega Latios, it lacked Genesect. But this fact did not stop my friend Chef from doing what I could not, and going undefeated throughout the regular season, clinching the first overall seed and heading into playoffs. However, this turned out to be a blessing in disguise for me. You see, normally a playoff bracket of 8 coaches is split into 2 halves of 4 teams, and since I was the number 2 seed, I ended up on the half that was not only opposite from players like Chef and Muffin, who I had a very close 1-0 victory over, but everyone that I was on a half with was inactive. Despite multiple Discord pings, nobody on my side of the bracket even attempted to schedule games or play games with me or with each other, which led Muffin to make a very tough call as the server owner, which was disqualifying all of my opponents. This allowed me to advance all the way to finals with no need to play anybody. I had lucked out completely. All I needed to do now was sit back and wait to see who my final opponent would be as the other half of the bracket progressed. And after a couple weeks of waiting, to absolutely nobody's surprise, Chef emerged victorious, and the scene was set. The final game of the season would be Chef's undefeated squad of underdogs versus my unbalanced team of broken Pokemon. Ever since JJDL Season 2's conclusion, Chef and I quickly became very close friends. We joked around frequently, joined the same draft servers, helped each other build and run mocks, and found Draft League YouTubers we both watched. We even started watching Avatar together with one of our other friends, Wagon Fruit, in late-night Discord VCs. But something neither me or Chef had done before was battle each other in an actual Draft League game. That's right, this means that our first battle against each other was for all the marbles. And to add to it, we both really wanted this win, really bad. Chef and I had both lost a finals previously, as Chef lost in the JJDL Season 2 finals for his division, while I lost to Sir Blue in GLCC Season 1 just a week before this battle was set to take place. One of us was going to redeem ourselves and claim a well-deserved Draft League win, while the other would have to wait even longer, dropping to 0 wins and 2 losses in finals. The stakes could not be higher. As I prepared for this showdown of a match, I of course had to look much closer and take an in-depth dive into Chef's team. Chiempao's matchup looked incredible minus the Mega Scizor, while Comfy could take care of it using Terra Fire. Chef's Terra captains looked very scary though. The Dunsparce could Terra Fairy and wreck my entire team if I wasn't careful, but Passimian could do the same thing to a better extent, meaning that it would certainly be the main offensive piece for Chef to utilize. Gradually, the pieces of the puzzle fit themselves together in my head. I would bring a Swords Dance game-ending Chiempao, a Terra Fire Comfy that could also win the game in the right position, a Choice Scarf Latios to revenge kill everything, a Mega Banette for Prankster Destiny Bond and for strong priority options, a Heatran that could act as a defensive piece while still outputting massive damage with Overheat, and an Iron Hands that looked like it could beat up its entire extended bloodline. The team was ready, and so was I.
Fight!
As the battle commenced, something immediately alarmed me. Oh my god, he brought Terra Fairy to Dunsparce. Holy shit, I'm so underprepared for this. Yeah, I have no phasers. So if this gets set up, I'm kinda just in the mud, I think. Yeah, this is gonna be really hard to break. I knew this to Dunsparce would be a huge problem. All of my prep had banked on a Terra Fairy Passimian to come, which in my mind was the far superior of the two options for Chef, and so I was severely under-prepped for the Dunsparce. With access to Terra Fairy, as well as the setup options of Calm Mind or Coil, immediate healing provided by Roost, and the ability Rattled to increase its speed, I knew immediately I would have to work very hard to remove it if I wanted to win this game. I had a favorable lead matchup though, Latios into his Rotom Wash, and I was able to get some damage on an incoming Tinkaton, which forced me to switch into Heatran. However, as I switched, the Tinkaton clicked Swords Dance, and I immediately knew what Chef was doing. His next move was almost certainly going to be Bulldoze, an attack that deals 4 times super effective damage to Heatran. This was a trap set by Chef, which I had walked straight into. I couldn't switch out either, as nothing that I had in the back comfortably took a +2 Gigaton Hammer the next turn. Left with no other option, I sacrificed almost all of my health on Heatran to remove the Tinkaton, impressively killing through its Aqua Berry with Overheat. I had drawn first blood in the contest, but my defensive capabilities were almost entirely gone, as well as one of my only Pokemon that had a positive type matchup into the Dunsparce that loomed in the back of my mind. After some more positional plays, and Rotom revealing that it was holding a Flame Orb which signified to me that it had Trick to cripple one of my physical attackers, Mega Scizor switched in on my Chien-Pao's Crunch, which luckily lowered its defense. However, the next Crunch still didn't kill, so I was forced to switch out, ultimately sacrificing what little was left of Heatran in order to fish for a Flame Body Burn, which I sadly did not get. I went into Iron Hands to force the Mega Scizor out, and was greeted by Rotom Wash as I set up a Swords Dance, which wasn't ideal, since I certainly knew that he was going to click Trick. To counter the Trick, I went into Mega Banette, who was immune since you can't trick a Mega Stone. After 1v1ing the Rotom for a couple of turns, my Banette came out on top, meaning I was up 2 kills to 1. However, it was here that Chef made his move. Chef sent in his normal type to Dunsparce and coiled as I went Iron Hands. I knew that if I got a call wrong with this Iron Hands now, it would likely spell disaster for me, as my other ways of breaking a setup to Dunsparce was Destiny Bonding with Banette, and after getting the first call with Iron Hands right, sadly, the next one didn't go accordingly. And now, the situation had become truly dire. I sent in Banette, and since the Dunsparce was now a Fairy type, I could at least do some damage to it. But I knew I had to get my Destiny Bond timing right. So first, I burned the snake to get some residual damage. Then, I clicked Poltergeist, which not only gave the Dunsparce a speed boost due to Rattled, but it also revealed the item it was holding, which was a Covert Cloak. This was just about the final nail in the coffin for me. No longer could I lean on Latios to get a Spadef drop using Luster Purge as a way out. All of my doors were being shut one by one, and Chef realized quickly he didn't have to attack my Banette. Destiny Bond can only be clicked 8 times, and Chef had plenty of turns that he could waste by clicking Coil and Roost instead of his damaging moves. The Banette route clearly wasn't going to work either for me, so I tried one final approach. I had to hope that Terrafire Comfy could heal past the Dunsparce's Terra Blast damage, and pray to the Lord that he did not have a ground type attack. However, my final mistake was forgetting that Terra Blast turns into a physical attack if a Pokemon's attack stat is higher than its special attack stat, and so Terra Blast was doing too much damage anyways. And even if this mechanic wasn't in place, Chef revealed Earthquake on the next turn, making short work of my Comfy. Without Comfy, this position was unwinnable for me, and as a result, I practically resigned from the game. Even with Destiny Bond potential still around, the game was over. I sat facing the screen for a couple of minutes, not moving the mouse or speaking into the microphone at all, just letting the feelings sink in. Eventually, I sacked Latios and then Qianpao, leaving only my Mega Banet on the field.
He had it. He had nothing. Oh my god, I finally won a finals. Oh, I won a finals game. Oh, I won finally. Oh my god, okay.
In one last humorous moment, I killed the Dunsparce with Destiny Bond, but at the end of the day, the game was over and I had lost due to tunnel visioning on Pessimian in prep. After 6 straight wins to open the season, giving me so much hope that this league would be the one, the last 2 games I ended up playing cost me first the undefeated regular season and then the championship. Needless to say, I wasn't very happy with myself. I was so unhappy and dull throughout the entire latter half of my recording. I was so embarrassed afterwards that I didn't upload my perspective of the game. The more and more I thought about this league as a whole, the more and more I realized how golden of an opportunity I had. I had drafted quite possibly the best team I will ever draft in a very long time, featuring both absolute beasts like Qianpao, Heatran, and my Terra captains, as well as some personal favorites like Iron Hands and Mega Banet. And at the end of the day, I wasn't able to accomplish anything noteworthy with them. The golden opportunity had been wasted. To sum everything up now that it's been a while, I'm able to reflect on what transpired this season and be quite proud of how well I played throughout almost all of it. To conclude, the Pokemon that impressed me the most this season were Iron Hands, who went 15 kills to 5 deaths, Qianpao, who went 9-2, Comfy, who went 7-2, and Mega Banet, who went 5-3, very formidable for a utility Pokemon not exactly meant for killing. Some Pokemon that didn't perform up to standards this season were Scolipede, who went 1-1 due to only coming to a couple of games, and Latios, who was forever stuck in the shadow of Iron Hands and Qianpao, only managing 3 kills this whole season while dying 5 times. Though I am still incredibly disappointed, at the end of the day, this was the second ever league that I have joined, and I still had an absolute blast using the team and getting better at the game as a whole as the season went on. Another positive of the league was that Chef ended up using his finals victories to start up his own YouTube channel, which will be linked in the description. He and I continued to be very good friends after the battle, as literally the night after the battle we hopped in voice call and enjoyed a handful more episodes of Avatar. Though the Seattle Slashers are now 0 wins and 2 losses throughout finals and racking up second place trophies for our trophy cabinet, you guys better believe that I am now hungrier than ever for my next shot at winning it all. I am committed to improving my play and my prep to make it to the top again, and when I do, I promise that I will not fail for a 3rd time. For now though, my name is Central, this has been my first experience in a National Dex Draft League, and until next time, go Seattle Slashers.